This episode of Nos Arietes is sponsored by Full Pull Wines, a Seattle-based wine retailer and proud sponsor of Nos Arietes since 2011. Full Pull was founded in 2009, is based in Seattle, and is owned and operated by longtime Sounders supporters. They offer the best boutique wines of the world to members of their mailing list, with special focus on their home, the Pacific Northwest.
Hey, this is Christian Roldan.
And Jordan Morris from the Seattle Sounders Football Club.
And you're listening to...
This is Nos Arietes.
Here we go. Come on! Hey, O'Shan! Let's go!
A sideline fry! The Seattle Sounders have done it! MLS Cup winners!
Here comes Rangers through the middle to crown it for Seattle! And now they truly can start the celebrations. It's the Sounders MLS Cup.
Nicoladero leaves absolutely no doubt! The Sounders rule the region!
Seattle Sounders is good.
Seattle Sounders, the greatest MLS team in history.
They've scored! They've scored! Finally!
This feels fucking awesome.
This is a tiny dog.
Is that what you young people call twerking?
And Paul can't say it's cheap.
We want to win. Let's see how the Sunday, bro.
Good for Seattle!
Welcome back to another episode of Nos Arietes, sponsored by Full Pull Wines and Watson's Counter, as well as our Substack subscribers. Joining me today to help preview the upcoming game against the San Jose Earthquakes on Wednesday is Jamin Moore of Quakes Epicenter, which is a patron-supported website. That's why it was on my mind. But thank you for joining us, Jamin.
Hey Jeremiah, good to talk to you again. It's we get to catch up at least twice a year.
Yeah, exactly.
So we can be becoming regulars.
Yeah, exactly. But so the Sounders are coming off a 1-0 win against the New York Red Bulls. The Earthquakes are coming off a 1-1, let's say a 1-1 loss to FC Dallas. It was a tough one, I would think, to stomach, right? The equalizer comes in the 90, late into stoppage time.
I think in order to kind of worry too much about walking out of that game with a point, you kind of would have to be a rose-colored glasses Earthquakes fan to begin with, because the goal itself was not all that impressive, right?
That's a good point. That's a fair enough.
And so I thought that the lead flattered the game. Honestly, it probably should have been a 0-0 draw. I don't think there was a lot of attacking prowess displayed by either team, but maybe that's what happens when you get two coaches that kind of come from the same coaching tree in a way, and kind of play with very similar styles. Their pressing triggers almost look exactly alike. Like it's kind of like the two Spider-Mans pointing at each other when the Quakes and FC Dallas play these days. And of course, Lucha Gonzalez coached there. And so, the players know each other very well. They know him very well. They know what he's trying to do. And it hasn't changed all that much. And both coaches were assistants under Greg Berhalter. I mean, how much more alike right now can two franchises be? They both got academies that are up and coming. FC Dallas have been around, for a while, but the Earthquakes, as everyone's kind of seeing right now with the U20s, are showing really well also. So, yeah, it's I think a 1-1 is kind of fair, because I probably thought it should have been a 0-0. So I think the Quakes fans should take the point and not worry too much about the draw points.
However you feel about that one, it is sort of a recurring theme for the Earthquakes this year. They've now dropped 8 points on stoppage time goals, either turning wins into ties or ties into losses. Is that how much of that is just the weird variance of of when goals happen, and how much of that is an actual concern for the Earthquakes?
Well, I think for the fans, it's a concern. For me, I'm the data guy that does the American soccer analysis stuff on the side, right? So I'm looking at that as a little bit of a weird variance. Look, teams drop points on the road in MLS all the time. These are the first 2 points the Quakes have dropped at home, you could say. The other 6 came, Thiago Almada, with his 2 goals in the very first game of the season. Those are points dropped right there. Another one was the Red Bulls game with the racism incident with Van Zier, which added on another 20 minutes of stoppage time in that game. That's another one of those games.
Okay.
So you're talking just some weird situations to begin with that some of those points were dropped in. So while the number doesn't look great, away teams quite often get leads and drop them in MLS because home field advantage is so strong. Teams come back. It doesn't bother me like it bothers a lot of the fan base. I do think there's a lot of variance in that.
So maybe one of those things that probably looks a little worse in the way I shared it than when you're sitting there and living the lived reality of like how each one seems like it has a unique explanation as opposed to this idea that the Earthquakes just can't close out games. Especially when you include the 20-minute stoppage time game by itself, sort of throws off that whole way of looking at it. That said, the Earthquakes have been overall really good this year, especially at home. This game is obviously on the road, but it sounds like maybe their road record is a little better than, or their road performance is a little better than their road record would suggest.
I think that's true. And, it looks like both teams are going to come in, with less than optimum strength in this game, right? Both teams have injuries. They both have players at the U20 World Cup, including, Cade Cowell, who's been the regular starter on the left. Jackson Ewell might have a bit of a knock trying to play through it right now. They're not revealing a lot about that. So, there's a lot that's kind of going on both ends. The Quakes might be out 2 starting outside backs, given that Carlos Acapo had a hamstring injury about 3-4 games ago. They haven't looked great since Acapo left the starting lineup. The offense has not come together quite as strong. Christian Espinoza, who looked like a world beater earlier in the season, has come back down to earth. And that's his side, right? And so, these are all factors right now that the Earthquakes are for the first time in let's say even several years, I guess maybe the 2019 first Matias Almeida season when they kind of came out of after the 5 losses and then just went on a super hot streak of winning like 9 of 10 games. They're not used to being in this position. 18 points banked early in the season is, over half of what they banked all of last season. Right. So, at this point, like it started off hot, it's cooling off, but this is also the road stretch. A lot of road games in here. The last home game before FC Dallas was LAFC. That was at Levi Stadium. They won that game 2-1, handed LAFC their first, I think, only loss of the season. So, they've had the ups and downs for sure. And the ups have mostly come at home and the downs have mostly come on the road.
Well, let's talk about some of the things that they do well. You mentioned Christian Espinoza. He is his I guess similar to Jordan Morris. His stats maybe are very good, but are front loaded a little bit in terms of when he's been doing that. But also Jeremy Abobasi is having another solid season. Generally, aside from those two, and maybe speaking to those two, what do they do well, and why have they been so improved under Luchi Gonzalez?
Yeah, Christian Espinoza, I mean, it's taken a bit of time to get enough data points on what's changed for him this season. But the fact of the matter is, Christian said it himself after the win against LAFC when he was asked in the press conference about, what does he owe to scoring more goals this season? He said, I decided in the offseason to score more goals and to shoot closer to the goal to be able to do that, which those of us who love expected goals know most of expected goals are how close to the goal are you shooting it and how much in front of it are you shooting. Since he's a winger and not a striker, right, it does make him have to kind of come inside. I think his left foot has been better. He used to just rattle the bar multiple times a season from distance because he's got an equally strong left and right foot, but it's not accurate, right? And so getting in closer to the goal, he can still use some of that power on occasion, but now, it's less likely he's going to put it over and less likely the goalkeeper is going to be able to react to it. But even then, like he looks like he's much more composed when he gets into the box, into those situations. He's always looking for cutbacks. It's a thing with him. He loves to get in behind. It's a natural thing for him to want to try to go to the end line and get in behind. Very successful doing it over the last few years. I think he's got the second most assists in MLS of any active player over the last 4 years. So it's been his bread and butter, but being able to add on the goals, and now he takes all the penalties. He's 4 for 4 this season. That adds a good dimension to his game. He takes those with a lot of confidence, a lot of power, always in a very tough spot to be able to save, even if the keeper guesses right. So yeah, I mean, all that has added up to more goals and still getting some assists, not quite as many. The Quakes have not scored on a corner this year. They're 3 goals under expected just off of Christian Espinoza corner kicks alone. So I'm not sure whether it's more him, more them, but right now, the first time the Quakes score, or the next goal, I would say the Quakes get on a corner this year will be their first, and they'll still be under XG. So yeah, there's a lot going on there, some good, some bad, but through it all, Christian Espinoza is the man in the middle of it. You mentioned Jeremy Abobasi. Look, Portland is still not happy about losing Jeremy Abobasi, at least the fans' side of the equation, right? And he scored 17 for the Quakes last year. He's got, I think, 5 so far this season. Maybe he'll get to 15 again. Maybe he won't. But a lot of that, is going to, decide on based upon the service that he's getting from other areas, not just Christian Espinoza, which I would say he's not gotten quite the level of service this year so far that he got last year. All that bodes well for the Quakes. For a team that is under expected goals and different things like that, to sit 5th in the West as of right now, for a team that was last season, if things come together and get regress to the mean, so to speak, the Quakes will improve, and that's only good for a team that's looking to make the playoffs for only the 3rd time since their 2012 Supporters Shield season.
And so, is there anything in particular that they're doing better? Like, is this just like you said, is it they're maybe rising to their talent level that was maybe being held back under previous coaching staffs?
Well, I mean, that and the tactics under Matias Almeida. I mean, right. I think people, anyone who knows me knows I am a huge unbeliever, disbeliever, doubter in Matias Almeida's tactics. And if you want to say by extension, Marcelo Bielsa's man marking, which got ripped apart at Leeds after winning the championship. I just think there's a ceiling to that type of tactic identity, and it also takes the best players in the league. So Almeida's winning the Greek League this year. Well, guess what? He's got the best players. When Almeida won down in Guadalajara, guess what? He had the best players. When he doesn't have the best players in the league, he can't execute those types of tactics. So basically, a lot of it is getting back to some defensive solidity, teaching the players to kind of, keep their feet, know when to go zonal, when to mark up, and just kind of getting back to the basics of some of that. And if you look at the tactics under Lucci and under Greg Berhalter in terms of their defensive solidity and what the U.S. was able to accomplish at the World Cup, that's now happening in San Jose. It's a very similar type of system. And so, while the Quakes are less effective at it on the road so far this season, it's definitely a lot better than the goals against pace they were on last season.
And so what team do you expect to see in this game? Is this, you mentioned a few notable absences. Is there anyone that you are kind of keying in on that might be indicative of or might be sort of like the talisman of which direction this game goes for them?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think, one of the players that really is going to need to show up big in this particular game is going to be Carlos Gruezo. He is their, $3 million signing, which may not sound like much, but for the Quakes, it's the biggest ever. They paid that to Augsburg in order to bring him back into MLS. He's a player who played under Luchi Gonzalez for a few months of Lucci's tenure at FC Dallas. And I would say that, right, he's going to have the type of game which is on his better end of games in order to be able to prevent the Sounders from getting into the middle of the field. We're not sure if Jonathan Mensah is going to play in this game or not. He apparently violated a team rule and did not play on Saturday, and Lucci did not commit as to whether he is available or not for Wednesday's game, I guess probably to keep the Sounders guessing. So we don't know if he's going to be back there. He's been big for the Quakes back line. When you go from a guy like Nathan, who, is a freewheeler all over the pitch, tackles anyone and everything all over the place, to Jonathan Mensah, who just basically gets in your head and gets you to get yourself out and make a mistake defensively. It's a wildly different equation. And, now, we'll see. Tanner Beeson started the other night. Nathan, for anyone who doesn't know, is out with an ACL. He won't be back this season more than likely. So, Tanner Beeson is next man up. He was fine, but, might have been the person at fault also for the goal for not closing down the header quickly enough that was able to go in the back of the net to make it 1-1. So, we'll see. Those are, if it's going to go well for the Quakes, it's going to be because they find a way to be able to slow down, the attack of Seattle.
Yeah, the Sounders also will be rotating a bit. They have, Morris is going to be out. Obviously, he had a groin injury. Dylan Tevez looks like he'll probably start in place of him. And then the other changes, it looks like Nuhu will come back into the lineup in place of Cody Baker, who looks like he's carrying some sort of injury as well. And then the two midfield, it looks like the defensive midfielders will also both be different. My expectation is Josh Atencio and Sota Kitahara, who I think is going to be getting his first MLS start. That's because Albert Rusnak missed training today, apparently got food poisoning sometime in the last couple of days. And of course, João Paulo is carrying a yellow card or a red card suspension. Right. And then there'll probably be some rotation at center back where the Sounders have been trying to rotate a little bit when they have 3-game weeks. So Javier Arriaga will probably come in for one of Yamar or Jackson Reagan. So that's, I guess that's 4 or 5 changes from the weekend. And it'll be an interesting collection. Raul Ruiz going to be available off the bench. Kellen Rowe made a much faster recovery than anyone seemed to think. At one point, they were saying he was going to be out 6 to 8 weeks. I think it's only been 3 weeks that he'll be back. And then I guess Christian Roldan is getting closer, but he's still out with concussion or going through concussion protocol. He's missed over a month now.
What's Jordan Morris' status?
He's going to be out for at least a couple. Like my expectation is to come back on June 21st, LAFC game, but he'll miss this game and then probably the Timbers game on the weekend. So yeah, it's been and then
if you want to see 2 rotated teams, this is the game for you.
Exactly. Yeah, Morris came out of the last game around the 35th minute with a groin injury. It looks like he may have actually hurt himself while scoring. So one of those unfortunate things. But it's I don't know. These midweek games in MLS are always a crapshoot, so to speak.
Yeah.
I'm assuming the Quakes play on the weekend as well.
They do. Yeah.
Yeah. So both Sounders and Quakes play on the weekend. That further complicates the situation for both teams. But yeah, I'll tell you, one of the interesting stats I saw just the other day or today was the Earthquakes are tied with Sporting Kansas City for the most wins at Lumen Field for a visiting team. They've won it 6 times, but only one of those wins has come during the Brian Schmetzer era. So kind of an interesting little factoid there. But yeah, this should be always an interesting game when the Quakes are in town. It feels like.
Yeah, we've experienced wildly different results in each game we've been able to make so far since I moved up into the area, and I'm looking forward to joining you at Lumen Field and seeing you in the press box again.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, maybe that game the Quakes won 1-0 in 2021. I think you were probably here for that one, right?
I was, yeah. That was when I think we were talking about all the reasons that the Quakes would lose, and then somehow they pulled it out because Matias Almeida actually abandoned the man marking.
That's right.
And
and
played a straight up compressed mid block, and I'm like, Jeremiah, I don't think they're man marking out there. I can't see any man marking going on. It was the weirdest thing.
Yeah. Well, Jamin, thank you so much for joining us and giving us your insight on the Earthquakes. If you want to find Jamin stuff, you can find him at Quakes Epicenter. They also do a YouTube show that's immediately post game, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So big, huge open arm welcome to any Sounders fan who would like to join us on the post game. You can catch us at youtube.com/Quakes Epicenter. We will probably go live about 15 minutes after the end of the game. So on your ride home, got nothing else to do, fire us up. We will carry the Earthquakes press conference. I always think it's interesting to hear from the other, side of the fence in terms of how they felt they executed in the game. And I think it gives a good balanced perspective. And one way or the other, whether you win, whether you lose, you learn a little bit about, kind of how the game was played from a neutral perspective. So always adds to your knowledge to know a little bit more about each team in MLS. So feel free to come join us. We're very welcoming to opposing fans.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Jamin, for doing this. Signing off on behalf of our sponsors, Full Wines, Watson's Counter, and our Substack subscribers. I am Jeremiah Shan. This is Nos Adietes, and we will catch you next time.
We love you. Let's win another one!